Hello, and welcome to Not Our Business podcast, where it's not our business, but we're going to talk about it.
We are a podcast exploring and discussing true crime, conspiracy theories, the unexplained, and whatever rabbit hole we find next.
I'm Sydney.
I'm Kate.
And today we want you to think to that one story that had you sleeping with the lights on or too afraid to look in the rearview mirror. Maybe you heard it around a campfire, or maybe a friend told you that they know that it truly happened to someone they know. Or maybe it was just a story passed down from generation to generation. There are some stories that are rooted in truth and others that are created to warn us. And then there are some stories that no one has ever been fully able to explain.
Yes, and today we are talking about urban legends. Urban legends are folklore or stories that have been passed by word of mouth, shared as scary stories, or passed off as real life experiences. Some of the most famous urban legends include Bloody Mary, a spirit summoned in a dark bathroom by chanting a name multiple times in front of a mirror, the Loch Ness Monster, a large aquatic creature who lives deep in the Scottish lake of Loch Ness, and the Vanishing Hitchhiker, a ghostly passenger who accepts car rides and then disappears before ever arriving at the destination.
Yeah, and there's also Slender Man, who's a tall, faceless creature that was created online, and he stalks and kidnaps his prey. And then there's always the classic poisoned Halloween candy theory that strangers are hiding razor blades and poisoning the candy they hand out to children. Did you ever actually try Bloody Mary when you were younger?
I think I remember trying it once in the school bathroom.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that. That's so fun.
It was at a sporting event or a school dance type scene. I remember the bathroom we did it in, and I don't know why we were ever in that area. But yeah, did you?
I did not. I was always too spooked out.
You've always been really worried about hell, so I get it.
I do have a bit of a conscience on the hell part. Absolutely. But I've been at summer parties where they did do it, but nothing happened.
Stayed out of that. Stayed clear.
We were more like light as a feather, stiff as a board kind of a gig, you know?
Yeah. Never did that one, I don't think.
Really?
I don't think so.
Do you know what
I was too scared of? Witchcraft.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. You're cool with summoning demons, but witchcraft is where you draw the line.
I have limits. So what we are going to do this episode, we each picked one of our favorite urban legends to talk about. And when we were setting this episode up, I was researching, trying to figure out which one I really wanted to dive into. And I realized that today, the day we are recording this, is a full moon. And I thought, what better time to dive into the folklore and the urban legends that surround the moon and how people believe that it can affect humans. The idea that a full moon affects our bodies is one of the oldest beliefs in human history. It sounds intuitive. The moon moves the oceans. Our bodies are made up of a lot of water. Could the moon be pulling on us too? The reality is a little bit more complicated. Some effects are physically possible. Some are biologically interesting, I would say. And some are just mostly folklore. The problem is that the effect of the moon's gravity on an individual person is extremely tiny as compared to a big body of water. The human body is much smaller than the ocean. Gravitational effects are going to be a lot lower. Within the same realm of that, the moon affecting our bodies and behavior, I'm going to put a disclaimer on this. I have never worked in a labor and delivery unit or a hospital. I have worked in a nursing home, but I was too young to really connect dots. But there is a belief that full moons can affect pregnant women in a way to put them into labor. It is believed that the maternity ward does get a lot busier during full moons. If you are a labor and delivery nurse, you can probably vouch for that because I have heard that quite a bit. The science behind it is that, again, with the moon having effect on water, does it affect amniotic fluid, hormones, uterine activity, or labor timing?
Which kind of makes sense.
Yes.
I can see the dots connecting for sure.
I've also heard of chances of labor happening during like snowstorms and stuff too because of weather. So I also wonder if the moon having like if there's an effect. I don't know. I don't know if any of that's tied together.
I think that we, as humans, are naturally attracted to the moon
Mm-hmm.
and that we do our cycles by the moon, right? Because when it's a full moon out, you can see more things. And, what does that mean?
There are also some old traditions connecting the moon with fertility because
Absolutely.
women's cycles average around the lunar month.
Hmm.
Modern research does show that women's cycles fluctuate pretty extensively, so it is hard to put that 28-day cycle on all women, but
Absolutely.
that's where a lot of medical guidance is based off of, is that 28-day
Hmm.
lunar cycle.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, back previously, before they had the medical advancements that we've had so far, right? And apps that track things and calendars, that was your calendar. That was how you were tracking it. And so that's why women, I say people, like men were getting them too. But women were tracking their cycles by the moon cycle because the moon cycle is always going to be the moon cycle, right?
Yes. So to say that it has an effect on labor and delivery or fertility or anything like
Hmm.
that doesn't seem far off.
I don't think it's far fetched.
And then again, also within that realm of the moon affecting our bodies and behavior,
Mm-hmm.
the word lunatic comes from luna, which is Latin for moon, because ancient cultures believed that the moon could trigger quote unquote madness. So historically, people blamed the moon for like violence, strange behavior, mental
Hmm.
illness episodes, increased crime, and more emergency calls. Again, tying back into what we were just talking about. Some theories suggest that because humans evolved before artificial lighting, brighter nights may have affected that.
Hmm.
Brighter nights may have affected sleep patterns, nighttime activity, hormones, and social behavior. I
Hmm.
still hear people talk about it being a full moon, so they're not sleeping well, or how it affects their day to day when a
Hmm.
full moon does come about. Do you
Yeah.
notice yourself like differences in your sleep pattern or anything like that around a full moon?
So I actually follow the moon cycles. I'm a lover of the moon. And so I don't notice necessarily a sleep pattern, but I do notice that my dream activity can peak during certain cycles, depending on like how that energy is.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think I've ever been one of those people where it was like, oh, I'm just sleeping all wonky. Or, working in the healthcare industry, they're always like, oh, the ER is going to be wild tonight.
People
And
are
I know
being crazy. Yeah.
statistically they've looked at it and yes, it has been proven like that this does happen. But is it because of the moon or is it because everybody's stressed out about the moon?
Right.
you know?
Is it all in our head now? So we
Right.
just think that we're causation, correlation.
Exactly. So, like, which came first? However, I do think that living by the moon is fantastic because it's always the same moon, no matter what phase it's in. Just like ourselves, we're always our same person, and no matter what phase we're in. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I love about the moon.
While there are no scientific studies confirming any of these urban legends,
Hmm.
there are explanations for it. Is like I said, the lighting from the moon in throughout its different cycles
Hmm.
affecting different sleep patterns, subtle changes in circadian rhythms, so that we do know that the moon and the sun can affect our circadian rhythm.
Hmm.
And like you said, just setting expectations. There's a full moon, so you kind of go into the evening expecting to have horrible sleep. I will say the moon is fascinating because it does live in this space between science, psychology, and folklore, which is why it's remained one of humanity's favorite folklore stories.
Absolutely. Also,
And
werewolves.
that's the. I found so much on werewolves, but I had to cut it at some point.
I want to hear about the werewolves.
Darn it, I
Where
should.
are the werewolves?
Darn it, that's really the route I should have taken it because I learned about werewolves and vampires and all kinds of things
So
when it
what did
comes
you
to
find
full
out
moon.
about the werewolves?
Like the bullet points of what I was seeing with werewolves is that they transform when the moon comes out, especially during full moons. Something to do with their cycles with that. I don't know all of the ins and outs of it, but Now I am curious.
You know what I think is kind of funny though is that a werewolf is always portrayed as a man, right? However, women have cycles naturally, right? You would think that a werewolf would be a woman because the cycles. It would
Not
be a
according.
metaphor potentially, right?
I
For
get it. I get it, but I watched Twilight, and that is the extent of the knowledge that I have for werewolves.
okay, so for our next urban legend, I'm going to tell us a story. The year is 1804. John Bell moved his wife Lucy and their children from North Carolina to Robertson County, Tennessee, where he purchased 320 acres of farmland along the Red River. For the next 13 years, the Bell family enjoyed a quiet life building their farm and settling into their new home. But in the summer of 1817, that peaceful life began to unravel. One afternoon, while walking through his cornfield, John spotted a strange creature sitting in the middle of his cornfield. It had the body of a dog, but the head of a rabbit. Startled by this, John raised his rifle and shot several times at the creature, but the creature just vanished instantly. Shaken and unable to explain what he'd seen, John just brushed it off and returned home. By nightfall, however, the family would experience something even stranger. After dinner, they heard loud knocking that echoed from the outside of the house as if someone was banging on them. From this night forward, they heard the knocking night after night, and the knocking actually grew louder into pounding. And when this would happen, Jonas and his sons would rush outside just to find nobody there. They looked for whatever evidence they could find to figure out who was doing this, but there were no footprints, no signs of trespassers, or any explanation. And before long, the disturbances moved inside the home. The Bell children claimed that they could hear rats gnawing on their bedposts, but there were no rats to be found. Their blankets were ripped from them in the middle of the night, and their pillows were thrown across the room by some unseen force. As the weeks started to pass, the family began hearing faint whispers. At first, the voices were impossible to understand, but eventually they started to become clearer. The Bells started to describe them as an elderly woman singing hymns. The encounters, unfortunately, started to take a darker turn. The youngest child, Betsy Bell, she became the primary target of this entity. And night after night, something unseen was pulling her hair, slapping her across the face, leaving bruises, welts, and handprints all over her body. Whatever was tormenting the family no longer seemed content with simply just making noise. It had become violent. And despite everything that was happening, John insisted that the family remain silent. He feared that if word spread, that his neighbors might think they had lost their minds, or worse. Eventually, the burden became too much, and John finally decided to confide in his neighbor, James Johnston, who, along with his wife, agreed to spend the night at the Bell house to witness the strange events for themselves. When they first got there, nothing happened for hours. It was pretty quiet. Then, as everyone settled into bed, that's when the activity began. The covers were yanked from the Johnstons as they slept, and James himself was struck by an unseen force. Frightened but determined, he shouted, "In the name of the Lord, who are you and what do you want?" According to the story, the house immediately fell silent. Nothing else happened for the rest of the night. But that silence wouldn't last. Over time, the entity began to grow stronger, and it no longer whispered, it actually spoke. It sang hymns, quoted scripture, and even held intelligent conversations with those who would speak with it. And as stories spread throughout the community, people began referring to this mysterious spirit as the Bell Witch. Then, almost as suddenly as the attacks had begun on Betsy, their youngest child, the Bell Witch decided to take her attention and put it towards John Bell himself. The entity made no secret of its hatred for him. He repeatedly declared it intended to kill him. And around that same time, John's health started to decline. He suffered painful twitching of his face, and it increased difficulty swallowing. So by the fall of 1820, his illness had become so severe that he was largely confined to the house, and the disturbances were still continuing. The Bell Witch reportedly pulled John's shoes from him while he was walking. They would slap him during a seizure and wandered the farm shouting insults at him, calling him Old Jack Bell. Then, sadly, on December 20th, 1820, John Bell died, and according to legend, as the family gathered to mourn their loss, the Bell Witch claimed that she had actually been responsible for his death by poisoning him. Now, that claim was never proven true, but several months later, in April of 1821, the entity told John's widow that it would leave for 7 years before returning. And for 7 years, the Bell farm remained quiet. And then, lo and behold, in 1828, just as it had promised, the Bell Witch returned. And this time, she focused her attention on John Bell Jr. for 3 weeks before departing once again. And before leaving, they made one final promise that they claimed that in 107 years, which would be 1935, they would be back to visit another generation of the Bell family. Now, whether that return ever really happened remains a mystery, but nearly 2 centuries later, the legend of the Bell Witch continues to haunt American folklore, leaving one unsettling question behind. Was it nothing more than a story, or did something truly unexplainable stalk the Bell family at their farm?
What do you think happened? Do you think it was just in their imagination, or what are your thoughts?
After reading a lot of it, because there's some fun facts around it, they really thought the entity was Kate Batts, who was the landowner prior to John Bell, and she felt like she was kind of cheated out of her land. And I think that I forget what it's called, but when you give something so much energy and attention, it actually manifests and grows into a physical manifestation. Even though it's not real, it's just literally a figment of your imagination. And I feel like a little bit of that was happening. But the other fun fact of this is that historians actually believe that it was Betsy herself who had created the ruse, because she was the one that was receiving most of the hate, right? So she was getting the physical altercations. But also, in part of this story, is that she was engaged to another guy at the time, and she really didn't want to be engaged to him. And so the entity really spoke about how she wanted this engagement to be broken off. And so historians believe that Betsy kind of got people together to help her in on this ruse, to like knock on the doors and things and run. However, we don't know for sure.
I do have notes. I have thoughts. First of all, the name Betsy Bell, love. I absolutely love the name Betsy Bell. You said that, and I was... I'm
Okay,
sorry, what did you just say?
Time for another girl.
Apparently. My next question was, who lived in this house or on this property before? Because paranormal shit is real. It's real.
It is.
So, that led me to my next question.
Mm-hmm.
These encounters, could be explained with paranormal activity.
Right.
Can we circle back to that animal? What was it?
So it was the body of a dog, but a head of a rabbit. Mm-hmm.
That's the questionable part. That who knows?
And in a lot of urban legends and things of that nature are cryptoids, right? And so we've got Bigfoot, we've got the Loch Ness Monster, we have the skinwalkers, things of that nature. Was it something along those lines? It was in Tennessee. It's in the Appalachian. Does that have some, reminiscent legend of those figures?
Gosh, you said Appalachian, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole I would love to go down with you. As you were saying these things and these encounters that were happening, I was trying to take mental notes. I was like, okay, there's rats chewing on the floorboard. Now there's things pulling blankets off, but now there's an old lady singing hymns. I couldn't connect dots with it.
Yeah, it definitely kind of the MO doesn't work.
With what you said with Betsy, interesting.
If I was going to do that, I'm just going to do things that scare the ever-living crap out of people, right? It doesn't have
if you're gonna come back and haunt somebody,
right?
Yeah.
You're just, or if I put this ruse together myself, I'm just going to do things that are creepy.
Yeah. Have entertainment with it.
But I think there was a lot of this stuff going on at the time. Like I said, the skinwalkers and cryptids and stuff like that. However, the note that I did want to say about when you were talking about the paranormal is that Ghost Adventures actually went out. So Zach Baggins, goes out and they do a episode there.
Mm,
And if you go to the website, you can actually see it. And then I think right now Ghost Adventures is on Prime or Hulu.
okay.
So it might be available on there. I have seen it. I thought about watching it again before. I just didn't have time with everything going on. However, they do get evidence, right? Whether it's real or
Hmm.
not. I just like it.
Yeah.
But there's other people that talk about it that have investigated and they get things back and they ask, are you the Bell Witch and things of that nature? Is it real? Who knows? Who
Who
knows?
knows?
You know?
That's what's fun about these urban legends.
That was one that I think it's one of the most famous urban legends in America is this one.
Hmm.
I was surprised when I looked up urban legends. It wasn't like the one where it was, I don't know if you ever heard this story, but you go to the gas station and you fill up and you get back in your car and you drive away. And there's somebody behind you, like in another car, and they start turning on their brakes and flashing them at you. And you're like, what is going on with this person? And so you just, ignore it. But then they do it again. And then you pull over and they pull over too with their lights on. And you get out and you're like, what in the world's your problem? And they're like, I did that because there's somebody in your back seat. And every time they got up, I would flash my lights and then they wouldn't kill you. And somebody was found out to be in the back seat.
And that was real, or that's an urban
That's
legend?
an urban legend. And that's one of the urban legends that I was told as a child growing up. And
Hmm.
so, like, you always check your back seat before you get into the car.
That just gave me goosebumps. That's a
Yeah.
whole other thing I have to worry about now.
I'm so sorry.
But also, I would never, if it were dark out and somebody were flashing their lights at me and they followed me from my last stop, I would not be stopping. I would just get murdered, I think.
Yeah, I'm just going to get stabbed. I mean, screw it. I've had a good run, you know?
The last thing I would do is pull over. But then, oh my goodness, I hadn't heard of that one. There were a lot in looking at different urban legends, I was kind of specifically looking at like Midwest, South Dakota,
Yeah.
that type of stuff. There's a lot of dark figures and a lot of headlight urban legends. So
Hmm.
they're just being random lights behind you, then they're gone,
Yeah.
or like coming down a road, but like no car actually goes by. There's a lot of those.
I'm not surprised just because of the highway that is here, highway or interstate. I call them all highways. I'm not going to lie to you. However, it's very desolate in a lot of areas. And
Hmm.
so the mind plays tricks, or is it truly,
Hmm.
something that's actually happening? One day when I die, I'm going to find out all of this stuff.
You should see the list, the questions I have. Where is this person? What happened with this? Was this real?
I need my questions answered.
I need answers. I need to know if Michael Jackson. Those are urban legends, I guess. We won't
We won't
dive
dabble
down
in that.
that. But
However, the other one, the one with the babysitter.
no,
Okay,
I don't think
so
so.
a girl goes over to babysit, okay, and she puts the kids to bed, and she's just sitting downstairs watching TV, and she gets a call, and she answers the phone, and it's a wrong number, but they call back, and they say, "Have you checked on the kids?" And she's like, "Who is this?" Trying to figure out what's going on. They're like, I think you need to go check on the kids. And she goes upstairs and finds out that the call was coming from inside the house and she gets murdered.
I think that's a movie called I Know What You Did Last Summer.
It's not I Know What You Did Last Summer, but there is a movie that they did do based on that story.
Okay.
I Know What You
I
Did
think I
Last
remember
Summer
that.
is when Jennifer Love Hewitt and what's that girl's name? Anyways, that team of like 90s
Yeah.
teenagers. So they end up hitting a guy and killing him, and then they throw his body into the ocean, and then they make a pact that they're never going to talk about it, and then they all get killed
Hmm.
one by one, except for Jennifer Love Hewitt.
I feel like the start of that movie. Maybe I've seen the other movie that you're talking about, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
putting this title to it. But
I'll
yeah,
have to find what
the
that movie
babysitters.
is.
Interesting.
There's another one too that we had when I lived in North Carolina. There's this one road that you go down that it's flat, but if you put the car in neutral, it'll start to roll away. And if you put flour or baby powder on your windows, you'll see little handprints from kids that are pushing the car back because there was a terrible accident and they're trying to help everybody avoid having that same accident again.
I did read for more so the South Dakota folklore. What I was reading through was there are a couple of roads where it's kind of a mystery. If you put the car in neutral, the car will actually roll uphill.
Yeah.
And some of the explanations that it's more so an optical illusion. Other than that, I didn't read too much into it, but there were a couple different roads throughout South Dakota that you could experience that. That wraps up today's episode. Whether urban legends are rooted in truth, created as cautionary tales, or simple stories that evolved over time, one thing is for certain: they continue to capture our imaginations. We would love to know what you think. Have you ever experienced something that you couldn't explain, or is there an urban legend that still haunts you to this day? Let us know by leaving a comment or sending us a message.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. Leaving a rating or review is one of the best ways to support the show and helps others discover it as well. Episodes are available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok for updates and new episodes. Until next time.
We'll see you next week.